morning, everybody. So, if you are someone that has ever made a decision that looked like it was working and still knew that something wasn't right, I encourage you to stay on this live. This is exactly what happens to Abram in the message right after he gets his call, right? God gives him a covenant. And what God does in response to that, I feel like it's one of the most honest pictures of faithfulness in this entire story. So, welcome to all of you guys that are joining me. Good morning. I'm going to just post in the comments and just pin that. Just a couple of things for us to keep track of today, if it will let me. It's not doing it. So there's that. That is where we're at. We are going to be in Genesis, 12. We are going to hopefully get through verses 10 through 20. And then I see if it lets me put, it's not letting me put that much information, so, all right, I have comments I can pin. I don't know how many comments it's gonna let me pin, so I'll probably just go through and do a few at a time. But good morning to all of you guys that are joining in. Good morning, Christine. Good morning. Good morning, Gilman. Let's see. Sandra, good morning. Good morning. So I probably should open up my Bible today so I can get us into the Word. Normally before I get us started, I like to go through and recap the verses because there's a couple counter verses that I love including in, and I usually try to bookmark those ahead of time. And do I have any today? I'm trying to look through. Good morning to all of you. Good morning, Erica. If you guys are new here, I welcome you. I invite you to stay in to this Bible study that we're doing today. We're looking at Genesis 12, and it is the moment, if you're familiar with any part of Genesis, we are going through Abram's story. Good morning, Vanessa. We're going through Abram's story today, and maybe I didn't write down any counter verses. I thought I did. I can't find them. Oh, I did. They're Romans 28. And let's see. I think I just did Romans 28. We'll find it. We'll see. Good morning to all of you. Curious how your morning is going so far. I have gotten into this routine where I wake up, get my boys ready. My husband is usually working out, and then I start doing I do my hair first thing, and then I go through and get my boys ready. Then we come downstairs. My husband's usually done working out. Then we do breakfast, get the boys out the door, and then I come home and work out. And today I had a lighter workout, which was nice. So good morning to all of you. We are in Genesis 12 today, hoping to get through verses 10 through 20. And I'm not sure what you mean that it's not visible. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? So as we're kind of getting started in our day, I welcome each and every one of you. If you have not been a part of these lives before, I encourage you to stay. Today we are going through exactly what it looks like in Genesis when Abram gets his call, and then what God does in response. To me, it shows a very clear picture of what faithfulness looks like. And so I want to start in a way, as you guys are kind of coming in, that I think if I were to relate it to us as business owners, or those of us that are in a building season, whatever that looks like, a lot of times we make decisions based on fear. And fear is the thing that keeps us from continuing in our calling. And more often than not, when we make that decision that is fear-based, there's sometimes where it actually produces results. And that's where it gets complicated, right? the fact that you make a decision based in fear, that's common, right? I think if I've done that a lot. I tend to rush ahead and go before God and say, I'm nervous. I'm nervous in the fact that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what God has ordained for me. I don't know what next steps look like. So then I move ahead on my own. And more often than not, that fear-based decision immediately teaches me something that's probably obvious. So a lot of times as I'm going through, instances where I have run ahead and it teaches me something, it's more often than not where I come out on the other side of it and I have something to show for it. But then I think about, okay, well, how did I get here? Did I get here because I had faith in the Lord, or did I get here because I was scared and I rushed ahead? And then I tend to evaluate that and say, okay, well, that's not how I want to operate in my business. That's not how I want to be. I want to have faith that God is going to take care of me in every season, that He knows what is in my best benefit, that He is going to put me on this course and He's going to see it through. And so that's kind of how I feel like when I look at Genesis 12 and everything that God takes Abram through, and just see the faithfulness that Abram has, even though there are times where he goes to the Lord and he asks him questions. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have faith. And so that's kind of where we're going to be at this morning. We see that Abram, and if any of you are not super familiar with this story, Abraham and Abram are the same. They're the same person. God does a lot through Abram, and He renames him. Okay, so if you hear me referencing Abram, know that I'm also speaking about Abraham, for those of you who are not familiar with that. So Abram says yes, I feel like, to one of the most significant callings in all of Scripture, right? The covenant. He's leaving something that is very familiar to him. He left his town, this place that he was living in was a thriving area that, by all standards, would be probably the place that you would assume God would call him to, but He asks him to leave. And then he builds an altar on the ground, and then the very next thing that the text shows us is a moment where he's afraid. Then he makes a decision out of fear, and then someone else bears the cost of that. I think that God left that in the text this early for a very specific reason. This man who was called into something, who the covenant was going to be fulfilled through, who also is the one that, we'll see that God moves ahead through Genesis 15, where the covenant is going to be made, where He's going to make a great nation. He's going to make Abram the father of great nations, right? So that's the covenant. And that all that come through him will be blessed. All that fill the earth will be blessed. That's me simplifying it. I'm oversimplifying it, I should say. But that same man who He made the covenant with, Abram was also the first Hebrew, the same man who He made the covenant with in Genesis 15, he's still that same person, but God is taking him through this process. And there's a sequence that changes in all of this that will help you to understand the passages. So that's where we're going to be at today. It is one where I feel like, I hope you guys see how much it does relate to us, especially those of us that are in the process of co-laboring with the Lord. We have a calling on our lives, and we're building something in our homes, in our businesses. I work with faith-driven female entrepreneurs, so a lot of times I will accidentally reference that because my coaching hat comes on. But obviously the study is for everyone. So welcome to all of you guys that are joining in Vish, I will absolutely pray for you. Good morning to every single person that is in here. Jesus is King. Yes, He is King. If you are newer to this study, I welcome you in, invite you to stay. I want to give you a shout out. I do this every single live. I love seeing new faces in here. And I also do that because I want us to come alongside you and support you. Not just as a business. To me, running a business is one of the hardest things, and having that support can be so important. But I love getting to know all of you. So as you come in, and that's fine, there's a lot of people that just watch behind the scenes. But I encourage you to comment if you're new here and this is the first time you've watched this study, or maybe you're somebody who's watched for a little bit behind the scenes. I'd love to see your name pop up in the comments, so it helps me to recognize who's here, and I love seeing recurring faces. So good morning to every single one of you. I also love praying for all of you. So good morning. Good morning, Dylan, Hype King, Lee. Thank you, Hype King. This today is one where I think I'm going to relate to it very much so, because there is often times where fear, I try not to let it have dominion, right? Like I don't let it overtake me by any means. But I would be remiss to say that it is, I couldn't say that there aren't times where fear sometimes influences things that I do in my business. Then I can look at it and say, and recognize it for what it is, right? But sometimes the voices in my head telling me that I'm not enough, or you're behind, or, you're on a timeline, you fill in the blank, right? Sometimes it's just all the time, or you're not doing enough for your kids, or you should be here. Sometimes I make decisions that are like, okay, let me do that now. Let me rush ahead. Let me put this out when it's not necessarily ready. Whatever the case is, right? We all go through periods like that where we're operating in our own. And sometimes we're not as dependent on the Lord as we should be. So that's going to be what we're covering today in Genesis. Yes, I will pray for each and every one of you, Hype King, laying off the McDonald's. My husband and I more recently, sometimes for some reason I crave McDonald's. I don't know why, because when I look at what McDonald's actually is, I don't even know why I like this. It's hit or miss sometimes, but I look at it and I'm like, ugh, what did I just put in my body? And that helps me to not go to it. We made burgers the other day, and I was like, gosh, I think that it tastes so much better than McDonald's at home. So that kind of helps me times. But I will pray for you. I will pray for each and every one of you that are on this live. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. So it is something that we're going to get started here. I have to hop off right at 10 today. I have our Tuesday prayer call with the group in the community. If you are not a part of that and you would like to be, I pinned in the comments the Zoom for it. This is for female entrepreneurs. I apologize if I'm speaking fast. I pray that you can keep up with me. I don't know if I can slow down because I feel like I already speak too slow. But it is something that I will try to be mindful of. We do have recaps for all of the calls, so that might be something too that would be helpful for you. If that's something you're interested, the link in my bio has a option for you guys to go in and get all the replays of all of these calls, so you can kind of stay with everything that we're doing. But I have to hop off right at 10 to do the Tuesday prayer calls. They're called my eating gatherings, and it's just a time where I cover you ladies with prayer for the week as leaders in our homes, in our businesses, in our 9-to-5s, whatever that looks like. It's something that I believe we all need covering for as we step into our calling. And I also think that, they were created because I felt like, someone can say, I'm going to pray for you for this or pray for you for that, but it's sometimes not, it's not often where someone prays specifically for our businesses. Thank you so much, Erica, for posting that in the chat. Yeah, I have that link. You guys can, I don't know if it's saved as a pinned comment, but the Zoom link in and of itself is on there, and you can also use the link that Erica posted in there. I don't know how many pinned comments I can include, but I'll include Erica's. So, good morning to all of you. We're going to go ahead and get started. So, okay, you said you didn't see the Zoom link. Also, you guys, if you are on here and you want to be a part of those prayer calls, if you're a woman, it is something that if you don't see the Zoom link, send me a message and I will send you the Zoom link for that as well. I will also, I'll post it again before the live is finished, but we're going to get started here. So I think, okay, really quick before I get started, I'll answer your question. So the Zooms are, again, just if you're popping in, the Zooms are every Tuesday. They're just once a week. And I go over like a reflection. I go over so things that I see in the week. And then I cover you, I add scripture to it. And then I cover you in prayer. I take your prayer request. I pray over you. It's 20 minutes. It's very short, sweet, so that we have covering for our week. If you guys can either save the link or go to the link in my bio, you guys can sign up for that or just send me a message. So that way I don't miss any of you. Because usually when I pop off here, it's 10 Central Time. So 10 Central is like 45-ish minutes from me. But usually I just pop off here really quick and I try to message all of you. If you guys can just go to that, it should send you the link. If you run into issues, send me a message. So we'll get started. If you are new here, I love to do a recap of these Bible studies just to kind of get you caught up in this. The link is in my bio, yes, on my TikTok. And it just says, I think, Tuesday prayer calls or something like that. So yesterday we were in Genesis. We began the Genesis 12, and we were in verses 1 through 9. That's where we got through. So we have Abram, and we saw in the Hebrew that it spoke about the original text saying, when God asks Abram to get out of your country, from your family, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Okay, so that's a big part of where we were at. When we look in the original text, when it says, go to get out of your country. Where's this part that I'm trying to reference? Let me just word it like this because I'm not going to find it that quickly. What we found in the original text, what God is calling him to is in this area where he doesn't know, right? Abram is very dependent on the Lord in this moment. He is telling him to leave all that he's known and go to an unknown area, so that he needs to trust in God to get him to where he's going. Now, the original word in Hebrew that is used means go for yourself. Go towards what you're being made. Essentially, when he's being asked to leave all of these places with an unnamed destination to a land that I will show you, the clarity is on the other side of the departure, not before it. And there's this internal transformation that is also happening in all of this. So when it's saying go for yourself, go towards what you're being made, it's not necessarily just geographical. God is doing so much in Abram at this moment. Okay, so Abram went. He arrived in Canaan. And the beautiful part that we saw in this is that he built altars at every place that God appeared. So there was an altar before the plan. Then Abram built an altar in acknowledgement. And then, so acknowledging before he even gets anything, any part of the promise. God confirms the promise to Abram and says he will give him offspring. So he says, to your offspring I will give this land, is what he says, sorry. So then immediately after that, there is going to be a famine, and the land that he's called to cannot sustain him. So there's a lot going on in this time frame. What we're seeing is God makes a promise to Abram. God does this in a way that can only be of God, because God says, I'm going to make a great nation through you, numerous descendants, right? And in this moment, the crazy part of it is Abram's wife, Sarai, is barren. I love that in scripture, there is no place that it says that Abram questioned God or questioned the decision. He was obedient and he just went through, did what God said, even in this place where it was unknown, it was scary, it looked impossible. There were so many elements of it that he could have questioned. He could have questioned God's plan and sat and stewed on it and been paralyzed by fear. But he wasn't. The text doesn't say that he doesn't say that. It says that he was obedient. Okay, so we are in this next part of Genesis where we are in Genesis 12, verses 10, and I'm hoping to get through 20. We'll see where we get through today. I'm reading from a New King James Version of the Bible. Mine is a Bible study Bible. It's a John MacArthur book. I'm curious what you guys are reading from today, or if you were just listening along. There is no right or wrong answer. I'm just always curious what you guys read from. I think a lot of times I see I see you guys reading from the King James Version. There's a lot that read from the ESV. It is one where I love my New King James Version. It's just enough of the original text, but keeps it clear to where I can understand what's going on. So that's what I'm reading from if you guys are following along. I am so happy to see that you're going to be on the call, Laura. I'm excited to have you there. So we are in the moment where Abram is in Egypt. It says, now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there. For the famine was severe in the land, and it came to pass when he was close to entering Egypt, that he said to Sarai, his wife, indeed, I know that you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore it will happen, and the Egyptians see you, and they will say, this is his wife, and they will unalive me. But they will let you live. Please say you are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. There's a lot happening. So in this moment, we're seeing in these verses that there is a famine happening. So the land that God had sent Abram to couldn't sustain him, and so he goes to Egypt. I'm curious as to what Abram was thinking in that moment. It's just like, you told me to go to a place that was very unknown, and I get there and it can't sustain me. Like, to me, again, there's the obedience, right? So he moves forward to Egypt. All right, so this is something that when we see the famine, it doesn't mean that he went the wrong way. Okay, so there is, you guys have probably experienced this, and I'm curious if you have as well. A lot of times when you are being obedient, there's difficulty in it. And sometimes for some of us, we think that is indication that it is us making the wrong decision or not of course or something, right? So I can imagine when Abram is in this place and there's a famine, it can't sustain him. Obviously he's like, well, I can't stay here. Maybe I went the wrong way. Maybe I heard God wrong. The difficulty after obedience isn't an automatic sign that we were disobedient or that we operated in our own. In this verse, it simply calls out that the land could not currently sustain him. So therefore, the problem required a real decision. So the issue is not that he went to Egypt. The issue is the decision that he made along the way, which is what it speaks about, where they're going to Egypt. And in this moment, he tells Sarahi, okay, you're so gorgeous that the people are going to see you and they're going to want you for themselves. Then they're going to take me out, and I don't want that. I want to stay with you. So lie to them. Tell them that you're my sister. Okay, so he is scared and he is making a decision based out of fear. I don't think anywhere in the text does it say that God asked him to do that. God says, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house to a land I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. Okay, and then I'll bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. Okay, so to me, there is a level of, God just said, I'm going to curse those who curse you. So anybody that comes against you, you don't need to be afraid of that. He's still scared, right? Understandably so. I could imagine that you're going into this new place and you're nervous. You're nervous of all of the things that are going to happen, right? You're stepping foot into new ground around so many elements of it. So really quick, Daniel, I'll answer both of your questions. No, I'm not. And then you said, but he took his father and at least one family member he disobeyed. And so in this moment, all that it says with Abram, it says, so Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. His father, Terah, actually had passed away in Haran. So this was prior to him even getting to Canaan. So this happened prior to Abraham's journey. This happened prior to the promise. See that in Genesis 11 verses 32. And then we talk about, so Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. I don't see, unless it says it in a different version of the text, I don't see anywhere that it said that God told him not to take anyone with him. I don't see that. I would assume that he would, of course, have wanted him to take his wife. So I'm curious where you see that in your text. Okay. So, good morning to all of you guys. Yes, this is a Bible study. We are in Genesis 12. We are Genesis 10 through 13 is where we're at right now. So, Abram is leaving. He enters into this new area. He is going to the place where God has called him to, but he doesn't 100% know exactly where he's going. He enters into this area, and there's a famine, so it cannot sustain him, so he moves forward to Egypt. The decision that he makes out of fear is the fact that when he was close to entering, he thinks that people are going to harm him because his wife is so beautiful. Like, what a compliment. But in that, it contradicts what God had told him, right? And I also think, on Abram's end, of course, he had never heard of anything like this. So I'm giving him all the grace in this. But God has just spoken to him and says, I'm going to make you the father of great nations. He gets to Egypt. That hasn't happened. So having trust in the fact that God is going to fulfill his plan, that's one element of it. But even in this promise, it says, I will curse him who curses you. Okay, so when I read into the commentary, it says, those who curse Abram and his descendants are those who treat him lightly, despise him, or treat him with contempt. God's curse for such lack of respect and disdain was to involve the most harsh of divine judgments. The opposite was to be true for those who bless him and his people. Okay, so In this moment, it's just all based out of fear. We know that that's not what's going to happen. So when we look into verses 14, it says, "So it was when Abram came to Egypt that the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful," right? So they're talking about Sarai. The Egyptians saw Sarai, and they did indeed believe that she was so beautiful. The princes of Pharaoh also saw her and commended her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. He treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Sarai is Sarah. Yes, that is correct. She also gets renamed later. And it says in verse 18, "And Pharaoh called Abram and said, 'Why is it that you have done, what is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife?' Why did you say she is my sister? I might have taken her as my wife. Take her and go your way." So Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. All right. So in this moment, we're seeing that obviously Sarai was taken into Pharaoh's palace, and Abram was treated well on her account. Okay, he receives livestock, he receives servants, silver, gold. He receives a lot. So on the surface, Abram's plan is functioning exactly as he designed it, right, in his mind. Here's the part that I think is important that we look at. So when Abraham made that decision, he placed risk onto Sarai while keeping himself insulated from it. Okay? He placed the entire risk onto her. He was protected. He was prospering. She was in Pharaoh's palace, of course, but she was also in a situation that she didn't choose because her husband decided that he was going to use her to manage his own fear. So she was just like, okay, I guess I have to go along with all of this. So in this moment, the Hebrew word for what Abram tells Sarai technically isn't a lie. She is his half-sister. Okay, so it's a half-truth, essentially. But it's functioning as deception in this moment. So there's a gap between the half-truth and the full truth. And that gap is what cost Sarai something. And so for any of us that are, I'll bring this back to us in our everyday, back to us as business owners, right? Leaders, whatever you guys are. If you're a business owner, please shout it out in the comments. I don't do that plainly enough, but I want to know what you guys do if you're a business owner. If you're not a business owner, I want to know what you do in your day-to-day. So it makes me curious because I go live at 9, right? Like 9 Central, so it's the beginning of the day. I'm always curious what you guys are up to. So technically, Sarah or Sarai, okay, so she's Sarai at this moment. Her name hasn't changed. Sarai is technically his half-sister. When you look at the genealogy of so many different things, that's not uncommon, right? That's not uncommon as the world is multiplied and they're filling the earth just as God made the mandate. That kind of stuff isn't as uncommon, and those type of things were not looked down upon during that time period. So anyway, it is an instance where he put Sarai at risk because he was scared. So for us in business, right, it is something, or in our 9-to-5s, whatever the case is, when we make a decision based out of fear, it rarely stays contained to just us, to the person that's making it. A lot of times we absorb the fear, then we make a decision to manage it, try to, sustain that decision that we made. But a lot of times the repercussions, the cost, the consequences of that decision that's based out of fear tends to land on somebody else, or a team member, or a client, or your partner, or someone who you trusted, who trusted you, was something that they didn't know, that they didn't know that they were being used as a buffer, just like Sarahi was in this moment, right? So they are a buffer between you and the risk that essentially you were too afraid to just face head on directly, right? So I also want to point out that I'm not shaming Abram in this moment. It's just something that we as humans do very often. When we make decisions based out of fear, we don't tend to think about the long-term repercussions of instances like this. And so it's just a fact. This is just what's happening to Abram. He is a man with a covenant. There is something very real going on in this situation. But I want to remind you that he is the man with the covenant. He is the man who built the altars. He said yes to God when God said go. To me, this gives me comfort in knowing that somebody that God sees as qualified to that level does not exempt them from mistakes, and it also doesn't exempt them from the calling. It just looks different, right? It all happens in different ways. And so, like you said, exactly, we all fall short. And I think a lot of times we don't recognize it for what it is, that we're making a decision based on fear and there's going to be potential repercussions. And I think that a lot of times that is based on the fact that doesn't always happen. There are times where I make a decision and I'm afraid and maybe I rush ahead and nothing on paper looks wrong or that I can see. So I think it's really complex in this. So there's no shade being thrown to Abram in this moment. For those of you guys that are on, I failed to mention that I am live on 2 platforms. So you guys will see me, like some of you guys that are on Facebook, that that's because I'm for those of you guys that are watching, same to TikTok, if I have comments coming, that's also so I'm looking all over the place because you guys are in different areas on my screen. So I said my voice cut off. Can you guys hear me okay right now? That happens a lot. Okay, I'm going in and out. Can you guys on Facebook still hear me okay? Okay, you guys said I'm good now. Okay. Really, I don't know where it cut out, so I couldn't tell you, but it's just me referencing that you guys are talking to 2 chats at once. So, anyway. Oh, interesting, Erica. Once I mentioned my other chat, it got wonky. Well, that's annoying. It's fine though. So, as long as you guys, it doesn't like us mentioning it. So, but am I good? Am I good to continue talking to you guys? Okay, good. Well, just know that's what I mean when I say that, when I talk about 2 chats. Okay. So, we are in verse 17. And so, right? Is that where I'm at? That is, no. Yes. I was looking in chapter 14 and then 13, and I'm like, I'm not even in any of those places. So we are in verse 17. It says, but the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarahi, Abram's wife. So God intervenes in this moment. Okay, God inflicts serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because Abram's wife Sarahi. And I feel like God is holding true to what he said he would do, right? He said he would curses him. At the same time, Pharaoh treated him well, I guess, so that wouldn't hold up. I think what's happening is the fact that God had to intervene in this moment. Okay, cutting off again? I didn't say anything wrong. You guys, please let me know as I'm cutting out. I appreciate you. Please do that. I don't know why. My internet connection should be fine. TikTok doesn't like me on Tuesdays. I don't know, because this happened last week as well. So, Pharaoh is ruler of Egypt. It's been choppy the whole time. Oh my goodness. Don't say that. Don't say that, Eric. I'm so loyal to TikTok. I love TikTok. It is my favorite place to be. TikTok lives are just the best. They, you guys, please don't let this be like it was last time where it cut out so much. It might be my mic. Give me 1 second, okay? It's constant. You can hear it, but it's distracting. Oh, my mic settings are fine. Erica. Yes, I'm so loyal, you guys. I would never deviate away from TikTok. Please don't. Okay. Right now it sounds good. Maybe it's just because let me scoot forward to my mic. Does this sound better? Shout out to you guys for letting me know. I never want you. Here's the thing, you guys. To me, this is an experience. So I never want you listening if it's sounding awful. I never want that. So you have to tell me, you guys do. You always have my back, but you have to tell me because I can't hear it. It sounds fine to me. Can you guys hear the music? Okay. Yeah, it is so hard. I wish if I could put on my headphones, then that would be helpful, but I still can't hear myself even through that. So it's fine. Okay. We will get back on track, you guys. So in this moment, I wonder if it doesn't like the word Pharaoh. Maybe that's a trigger word for it. But it is something where he's interceding, I believe, on the behalf of Abram. That tells me that God is, in that moment, what I'm seeing is God will always make sure that his plan comes to be. Okay, so it is something, it's probably because, yeah, like you said, Vanessa, I was too far away from my mic. So me getting closer, I'll just talk directly to the mic, especially because I have such a soft voice. So, anyway, what that is showing me is in this instance, God's plan will always come to prosper. It will always happen. And the instant where God saw, okay, this is potentially going to go sideways. It's not going to go according to my plan. I have to intervene. He did. Because, not because the person, or not because, sorry, he was intervening for the person, okay? Right, Sarahi, but he's not intervening for Abram. That's what I'm trying to say. He wasn't intervening for Abram, the person who put the plan at risk. He was intervening because also Pharaoh didn't know. He didn't know the full truth. So in that instance, the situation that Abram created required this consequence that Abram himself was not in the position to receive. Essentially, it's saying, kind of like you sinned, and there needs to be a consequence for this, but I can't place it on Abram because the covenant, and I need to see it through. He can't receive this punishment, but I think that he's intervening in this moment so that the plan can actually happen. I'm curious how you guys see that. That's kind of what I'm seeing in here. So then we see that Pharaoh calls Abram in, and he says, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me this was your wife?" He wasn't wrong, right? He acted it in good faith. He didn't have all the information. He acted on the information that was given to him. So then he tells them, you need to get out of here. This is chaos. You need to go. And so then, of course, Abram leaves Egypt, right? Then we see in Genesis, then we see if we go forward into Genesis 13, Abram went up to Egypt, and he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him. They went to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. We know that the Pharaoh gave him that. He gave him the livestock, the servants, silver, gold. I don't even know what that equated to in our days, but he had real wealth. And I think that's so interesting that the Pharaoh didn't take that away from him. He gave that to him, but he didn't take it away from him just because he did him wrong. And Abram took it, like, I also wonder why I probably would have taken it with me too if I had the opportunity to, but like, he took it with him even though he just did something wrong to the Pharaoh. So when we look at it like this, the outcome looked really good. Abram survived, he prospered, and he walked out of Egypt with more than what he walked in with. But that doesn't mean that the decision was right. I think a lot of times we have this tendency, especially as business owners, whatever the case is. I think we do this just in our day-to-day, but we get really used to the results. We see the results as the measure of whether the decision was right or not. So, I made this decision and it went right. That must have meant that it was the right decision. It's sound. If it worked, it was probably the right call. If it produced something, then God must have been in it. That's not always the case. So Genesis 12 is showing us that God can still protect someone that is inside of a compromised situation, just like Abram and Sarai and everyone was doing, but he's not necessarily endorsing the compromised situation. His faithfulness to Sarai in Egypt wasn't necessarily a stamp of approval of how she ended there, like how she ended up in this place. Okay, so it tells me that sometimes when it's a good outcome, it doesn't always tell the truth about the decision that was made to produce it. So I think that, it's important. That's a hard, kind of complex thing, but it's important to understand. The version of us that shows up to business, sometimes the fear underneath it can be really subtle. Or sometimes a client can tell us a half-truth, or we have a launch in our business that worked because we overpromised. Maybe we had a partnership with somebody and that produced accurate results, like it produced real results in that. But there was something underneath you that maybe you didn't know the terms were right. That's all to say that results don't get the final word on the integrity of your business, right? So if you just jumped on, we are in Genesis 12. This is where we're going to stay. I'm going to go through it a little bit quickly because I have to hop off here in the next 10 minutes to go into my prayer call. That's at 10 o'clock Central Time. So if you're just joining and you're a faith-driven female entrepreneur and you want to be a part of that, we join on Zoom, and it is a prayer call. It's quick, it's 20 minutes, and it's something where I cover you for the week. And just in prayer. You just show up. You don't have to be on camera. You don't have to talk. I just want to pray over you. So that's what that is. There's a link. I think Erica posted it as a pinned comment. I am going to send it for you guys here. It is just for females, just because it's part of the community of women that I coach. You don't have to be a part of the paid community, but it is something that I just do just for the ladies. So sorry, guys. Anyway, so I pinned the, I put the link in there. You guys, I will say too, because I go so quickly onto the call after this one, I don't always get the opportunity to email or message every single one of you. Erica put it in the, thank you, Erica, you're the best. She put it in the comments just now, so you guys can opt into that, or I just put the link in there directly. You can also message me. I will do my best to get to you guys right away. Anyway, so this is where we're at. Okay, this is where we are in Genesis, where he makes a decision that's based out of fear. And I'm not saying that this is permission to just go on and make these fear-based decisions in your life. It just happens, though. It's just part of us being human, right? To me, it's showing that if we don't just have full faith in the Lord and we go run on our own, there can be real consequences. It doesn't happen every single time. Sometimes you make a decision and you might prosper, right? That should not be the indication of how you make decisions based in your life is based out of fear. The Bible says it. I think my mom told me on our live the other day, it's 365 times in the Bible. Do not be afraid, right? Don't fear. Trust in God, right? Trust in Him that when we can't see what is ahead of us, that He's already made a plan. And it also shows me that even if I operate in my own and I run ahead of God, He is going to course correct. If He made a promise to me, He is going to see it through. That's what gives me comfort in these moments. So when I look in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, is this where this is pinned? Yeah. Give me 1 second. Okay. Chapter 8, verse 28. Yes, that was my mom. My mom is young. Let's see. So, chapter 8, verse 28. Is that right? Yeah, chapter 8, verse 28, verse 28. It says, "And we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose." Okay? So we know that, right? We know that God is going to see it through. I'm not sure what you mean, Maria. Is there static on this live? I'm wondering if it's where it's set up. I didn't have any issues yesterday, but the Zoom is for our prayer call. So if you have the link to that, definitely join. Let me put it in the comments really quick. There's that for our prayer call here in a little bit. Sorry, I was reading on my other page. But yeah, we know that with God, all things are to prosper. So, and they work out for His good, right? He's going to see it through. And so that's kind of where we are today in all of this. I know that a lot of times we run ahead of God. We try to operate on our own. And so I hope that this serves as a reminder to you that God has us covered, right? He has good in mind for every single one of us, even when we cannot see what His plan is. Even when He's laid it out to us, right? He's given us the promise. To me, Abram is the perfect example of that's just human. That's in our human nature. When you tap on the link, it doesn't take you. Can you guys do me a favor? If you go to my profile in the link section, there's like a link in my bio. It'll take you to a link tree. There's 2 things for all of you guys on here. So I do recaps of these because I go live Monday through Friday at 9 Central, and most of the time I'm on for a little bit longer. Today I have to pop off earlier because of the prayer call. But you can get recaps and replays of all of the Bible studies in there. So there's a link if you go to my page on TikTok or on my other profile. But on TikTok, if you go there, there's a link directly underneath my name, and it has a place for you to sign up for the recaps, the replays, especially if you're new here. And there is also a place where you can do the prayer gathering calls. My automation sends you the link to it right away. If you don't get it, please send me a message and I will send you the link. But yes, what Erica says, you can just copy it into your browser. But if you can't, I will try my best to get to all of you. I'm going to hop off here to allow time for that because we go right at 10. It's just a Zoom. This is a 20-minute covering where I cover you guys in prayer. This is for my females, for the ladies. And that's what that is. But I go live Monday through Friday here on TikTok for normally about an hour, hour and a half, and we just cover the word. We go deep into it. So I invite you to come to our next one tomorrow. That one will be a little bit longer. We're going to cover Genesis 13, probably 14 and 15. And so we're going to see a shift in Abram's posture from Egypt to Canaan. We're going to see a shift in how he is, and it's very significant. I think that in these three chapters, he goes from using Sarahi to protect him to giving Lot the first choice of land that God promised him. Okay, so there's a lot in there. He's the same man, but he's going to have a different heart posture and all of that. And I love what God does in response to that second posture of how Abram steps into. And I think that it changes a lot how we think about generosity, source, integrity, and who actually holds the weight of the promise that we were given. So I am so honored to have every single one of you on this live today. Thank you for the gifts, the follows, the hearts, all of the things. Support me so much, you guys. I will see you all